Welcome back to the Business That Matters Spotlight. My name is Warren Cogman. I'm your host. And one of the reasons I love what I do as a business coach and why I love doing these podcasts is I get to have really interesting conversations with amazing people who've led really interesting lives and who take those life experiences and alchemize them into solutions and businesses that make a difference. And hopefully their experiences inspire you to do some good, and their stories of challenges and how they address them help you shorten your own journey to success in the broadest meaning of the word. And today's guest is another one of these amazing people who's transformed challenging, even painful origins into something fantastic, and who's really generous and open with those experiences. Joe Lyons-Rising created Data Gives Back as both a service that delivers real value in improving efficiency for big organizations, and as a social enterprise to impact an issue he cares deeply about. So, Joe, welcome to the spotlight.
Warren, so thankful and humbled to be on your show today. I really appreciate the kind words and opportunity to speak with you.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it. Let's just start with sort of the basics. Well, actually, one of the things I like to do with the podcast is sometimes people don't have the time to listen to an entire podcast all the way through, but they like to get some value out of it. So I always like to ask my guests right off the top, if you had one piece of advice for someone who wants to become a social entrepreneur and sort of shorten their path to achieving their objectives, what would that be?
Surround yourself with experts. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Good advice. And as an expert who gets asked questions, I like that advice. So let's just tell us a little bit about Data Gives Back. What is it? What does it do as a service, and who does it deliver those services to?
Sure. So we say, Data Gives Back. We're corporate training with a cause, and we're going to talk about the cause a little bit more later on. But our core services is that we do corporate training primarily in the retail, consumer packaged goods, food service space. And that's working with retailers, vendors, and operators. And we offer a number of different areas of training, from Microsoft Office technical skills, and not surprising, data. So we're talking about Excel. That's by far one of our most common and most in-demand courses. We have four different levels of Excel training, PowerPoint, even Outlook. And then I get into this unique space of data analytics for our industry called category management. And category management is really the commercialization of products you might see in a grocery store or a drugstore. How do they get on shelf? Well, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of money that goes into those things. But the heart of it today is data. So I have actually 14 different category management modules that I train. Specifically like manufacturers for retail and food service.
And you decide how much shelf space to allocate to something and where on the shelf it should go and whether they have end caps and things like that?
You hit it bang on, because how you decide what goes on the shelf, the whole process is called planogramming. It's kind of a funny word, but that's actually yeah, I like it. But that's actually how category management first came about decades ago, was around this idea of making it more efficient, making the stores look similar. So, today, if you walk into a Walmart store in Stouffville, or you go to a Walmart store in Ottawa, the category you go to for, let's say the sliced deli section, is going to look very similar, right? So there's consistency, making it easier to shop. So that's a big piece. There's a lot of data. That's the thing. Right now, we have more data than ever. And I would say a lot of companies are swimming in it. They know they have to purchase it, they have to invest in it, but you have to be able to take action with it to get the value. So that's really where I come in. And
is that around is it how to collect the data? Or I've a future guest on the podcast I was just speaking to the other day. One of his challenges is, got lots of data, but I don't know how to tell the story with it. Like, it's just numbers and information, but how do you take that information and turn it into, a usable form?
Honestly, that's the end goal for everything I'm working towards. I have a module called fact-based storytelling. That is my most popular course. And I'm not so much talking about collecting data. The great thing is there's amazing organizations like Nielsen, are now called NIQ, which is where I got my start 20 years ago. There's companies like Circana, a whole bunch of different companies that are collecting data, they're managing it nicely, and then they're selling it. So like you were saying, your client is purchasing this data and they're having access to all these really rich sales, shopper insights, consumer insights, but it's overwhelming. And then how do you get that into like a 5 to 10 slide deck to take to a retailer, to a food service operator, distributor? That's really my bread and butter, where I come in. That's what I've been doing for my kind of 20 years in the industry.
And do you do that just as training, or do you go in real time and help them like look at their data and say, oh, these are some insights that you can draw from this, or here's what this data is actually telling you? Or is it simply just training on how to do that?
Well, this is very timely, actually, having this discussion, because since we launched Data Gives Back in January 2021 to now, I have been doing consulting as well as training. But as of March 1st, we're actually moving to exclusively training. The thing that's unique, though, is because I've been doing consulting for the last 3 years with Data Gives Back, but really through my career with Nielsen, McCain, Sofina Foods, I've been a consultant. So I'm taking that mindset into my training. So I customize all my training for my corporate clients. So I'm still acting like a consultant, but in a training way, because I believe that every training session should be fit best to that group, right? It shouldn't just be kind of the same like syndicated training that just gets slapped across the board. It has to be customized to their needs. You
mean like providing real value?
That's the goal. Yep. because I've been on the other side, right? I've worked on the manufacturer vendor side for 10 years. So that experience has really helped me kind of have empathy for what my clients are looking for. And so I really pride myself in really listening to what their needs are and their pain points.
So let's talk a little bit about that journey. Like how did you go from corporate to starting your own business? And what got you on the data side to even begin with? When you went to Nielsen, what was the attraction?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how much time you have, you can go all the way back to my mathlete days in public school, but yeah, I've loved numbers and math, I don't know, since I was a little kid. I was playing basketball and snowboarding, but I was also on the math team, and I just loved math. I went into economics and a minor in business at Wilfrid Laurier. So math is my jam. I love data and I love math.
Now there's a sentence you don't hear often. Math is my jam.
Yeah. Well, I try to have fun, and if it's possible to make math cool or data cool, I try to just have fun with it. And I mean, the reality is data is everywhere. It's now the number one most valuable commodity in the world. So it's actually a cool time to be a data lover like myself. But yeah, the story kind of goes interesting. I actually had a business, my first business right out of university when I was in Waterloo, and had two of my friends, and we launched a business. And it didn't quite go as planned. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was 22 years old. So the advice I was giving you earlier about asking questions, saying I don't know and I need help, I wasn't doing that. I was trying to fake it. I was trying to fake it till I made it, but I didn't make it. So that advice doesn't always work. So when that was kind of starting to kind of die down, I had friends that had gone straight to Nielsen from Wilfrid Laurier, and I heard about the CPG industry. I heard about the market research industry. And I said, if this business doesn't work, that's exactly where I want to go to apply my love of economics, business know-how, and data.
Nice. And so then you went through how many iterations? So you went through 2 or 3 companies?
Yeah. So I worked there for 6 years. I worked at Nielsen Canada. This has gone through a few different name changes. It used to be called AC Nielsen, then the Nielsen Company. Now it's rebranded as NIQ. And that was an incredible training. It was basically like getting a postgrad in market research because the data language of our industry at that time was Nielsen only. So once I learned that skills and became an expert in that, I moved over to McCain Foods Canada, and had an incredible tenure there for almost 3 years. I was an insights manager. I was an advisor for a number of years with Loblaw, and then I was an advisor with Walmart Canada. Learned so much understanding about how the retailers work, how planograms are built. I built a lot of planograms. And then eventually I was brought over to Sofina Foods, another private Canadian company, large food company, head office based in Markham. And I was brought over to help build up their insights and category management department. So I was eventually a director of insights, where I looked over the retail sales team and then also food service, which was really, really fun and exciting.
Nice. And so then what made you go, let's just chuck all that kind of financial security and start.
Right. Yeah, I would say that because I had that entrepreneurial bug in me before, there was something always there. Now I was scared. I did lose money in my first business. And so I was very cautious. And I thought maybe it's something I do when I'm like semi-retire or retire. COVID accelerated that. Like for many people, COVID gave either an opportunity to stand back and take a look at what really, was important to us, or maybe it was an opportunity to do something different. So I took it as an opportunity to do something different. And things were changing so much. I talked to my wife, Carly, who's now my business partner with Data Gives Back. And then kind of like, I would say maybe 5 months, 6 months after the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, I just said, I have this kind of wild idea. And I think that there's this weird alignment of the stars. The timing feels right to go and do something and try it. I'm like, just give me a year to try something. And I want to do something that's like completely aligned to our family values, our personal values, and something with a cause. I think that I've had a calling to me for decades. I couldn't figure out what my true purpose was. To take my business acumen, like I said, my love of data, my love of math, but how do I make someone's life better every day? That isn't just selling another product in a grocery store. That's important, but I want to have material impact to, someone or organization that needs help. And that's where this idea of Data Gives Back, being a social enterprise. And in the same breath, I said, I want to do something impactful. I want to give back 25% of our gross revenue, like top line revenue, to a charity.
And where did that desire to do good come from? Like, is it always there? Can you point to something that, I mean, I know we want to get into the other parts of your story. Like that's for the reason for the cause or the cause you chose. But like just to say, I'm in this like comfortable corporate position, but I want to leave and do something good and help others. Like, is that a faith-based thing? Is it just a personal values with you and your wife? You've always been there? Or was it a childhood thing?
It definitely started in my childhood. I was fortunate to be around family members that were typically volunteering and giving back in a lot of different ways. Whether it was like my mom was doing a lot of work with the Maycord group in the 80s and 90s. She used to go out and do puppet shows actually to public schools. I used to go with her. And then unfortunately, when she passed away, my stepdad, who adopted myself, my sister, I used to go and we'd volunteer with the MS Society of Canada, the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada. And I think it just started a little bit of like that idea that's like my true calling. And that's what you should be doing. You should be, yes, being successful, but always thinking about giving back to others. And that went on through my university career, whether I was volunteering as a frosh leader at Laurier and we were raising money for cystic fibrosis, like the feeling, I think as I got older, I started to realize like how pure and amazing that feeling is. There's a lot of other crap that happens in our lives. Life is tough, but there's something exceptionally pure about helping someone in need.
Yep.
Right. And when you can see that impact, or even if it's a larger organization, like, it's also therapy for yourself. And I have to say, like, I really needed that at times in my life. So I've always been thinking I wanted to do something with a greater purpose. And then, career went on, whether it's at Nielsen, I was involved in United Way, Sofina Foods, I was involved in the Sofina Foundation. And then just kind of funny how things go. I got introduced to now our benefactor, Season Center for Grieving Children, in 2019. And as I kind of talk a bit more of my story, like, it ended up being like the charity that fully aligns, matches with.
So let's talk about
my
that.
life.
So you're, and just so that people don't think I'm diving into somebody's personal life in an intrusive way. You're writing a book about your experiences, right? Or have
That's
written
right.
a book. Yeah. When is the book coming out?
There's no hard date yet. We're just still working with our publisher on the date. It'll be sometime between like kind of August to November in this year, 2024. And it's the book in itself has been almost 7 years. So it's been a journey just writing it.
Wow.
And it's a self-help book with a lot of kind of memoir aspects to it, things I've gone through in my life. And the book itself is called Pain Remixed: Mental Health Tips from a Suicide Loss Survivor. And really, it's my journey of going through trauma, grief, depression, anxiety since I was 6 years old. And I really have come into my own space now the past couple of years to share that story, to share those tips, to share those learnings, so that maybe I can make someone else's grief journey a little bit easier. I can make their anxiety a little bit less intense, or the depression a little bit brighter. Because the reality is, like, we are in a mental health pandemic, globally. And unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic has just made that worse. There's a lot of isolation, and then we have a lot of different addiction, opioid crisis right now. So the unique thing is that kind of staying true to our philanthropic roots is that I'm working with an assisted self-publisher in Vancouver called Tellwell. And so I was able to purchase 100% of the royalties, so I can donate 100% of the proceeds of the book to Season Center for Grieving Children.
Wow, that's amazing. And so tell a little bit about your story. Why grieving children is so relevant to you.
So like I mentioned, I've been on this because I'm in my mid 40s now. So it's been close to 40 years since my dad passed away. So my dad had bipolar, and he passed away from suicide in 1986. And then unfortunately, my mom, who battled multiple sclerosis and dealt with severe depression, she also passed away and died by suicide in 1989. So I was 6. My dad passed away. I was 10 when my mom passed away. And my sister's 4 years older than me. My stepdad and my mom had a kid, my brother, and he was only 22 months old when mom passed away. So, my stepdad comes in, he adopts us, we stay together as this unit of 4, and really try to just really push through. It was an uphill battle, to say the least. And Season Center launched in 1995. Okay. Season Center for Grieving Children is based in Barrie, Ontario. That's where I grew up. That's where I was living when I was going through all these losses. And the type of therapy that was available was different. It wasn't like what Season Center offers today. So, I'm so fortunate for the family I have, extended, immediate, the friends I have. That's really what helped me get through. But I know that what Season Centers offers today for their participants, and they have since 1995. That's the game-changing work that we needed, because I struggled then with severe anxiety, depression as a teenager. It wouldn't be until my late 30s that I was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder. So yeah, getting diagnosed later in my late 30s from my anxiety disorder, because the thing that I've learned is that if you don't face these, I don't want to call them demons, but I would say these different, traumatic events in your life, things that have caused you a lot of pain, they will come back. Okay, they will come back. And so, whatever your outlet is, because there's a lot of different areas you need to choose, you need to figure that out. And personally, I would love to help kids, teens, and young adults find that earlier, right? To make their lives a little bit easier, or quite a bit easier, better than what I had gone through. Because I held so much in. As a kid, I love basketball. So, I'm out here trying to do what Magic Johnson does on the court, and I'm not going to stop making a pass and just say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling really griefy today to my buddy, right? It's just not how it goes. So I did have some really close friends that I could confide in, but it's also just kids. We're not, our brain is not developed enough.
They don't even understand what griefy means.
No. And so I did go to family therapy altogether, but I never felt that my pain and my problems were as important as my rest of my family. So I was super quiet. I was the quietest in the room. And that's what is unique about Season Center is they do peer-to-peer training. So let's say when I was 10, they would have paired me up with other 10-year-olds that are going through grief. Mm-hmm. They even have a program for suicide loss survivors, because that's the other stigma I dealt with, not just the grief part, then also the idea of suicide is very stigmatized, still is, but it was very much so back then. It wasn't like I just said, yes, my mom died from cancer. Suicide is very stigmatized. So one of the things I loved about Season Center is they bring these kids together with similar loss.
Did your peer group as a kid know that that's how your parents died?
Yes. Yeah. And they were incredible. I did go through bullying when I was in grade 5, and my group of buddies stood up for me time and time again. It never happened again, type of thing. And I still have one of my good friends that stood up for me in grade 5 just messaged me this morning. So that's the type of loyalty. So I didn't have Season Center, but I had these other family. My friends are my family. People have just supported me unconditionally. And
because often in that kind of trauma, it can, you in one of our earlier conversations, you had said that you didn't experience some of the symptoms that a lot of trauma survivors do because of the cohesion of the rest of your family, your siblings and your stepfather, right?
Yeah, it does feel definitely a miracle. I'm so thankful because I do have other friends and family that deal with PTSD. And what's interesting, and this is why I love supporting children, is so my brother was 2, right? And we're trying to figure out how do we raise this kid. Well, he became this bright light for me. Right? There's something so pure and innocent about a child. And I know that now as a dad. We have 2 daughters. So I took that kind of trauma and grief and things I was bottling up, and then I kind of focused, and so did my sister and my stepdad, and it brought us together to give him the best life he could, to raise him the best that he could. So what that meant is that Christmas Eve, there was my sister and I, with our Santa hats on, and we're putting together wagons, or we're getting stuff ready, or maybe on Easter where we're doing Easter egg hunts, just like my mom used to do, and carrying on the traditions. So yeah, I look at that as whether or not you believe in certain religious things or spirituality, there's people in our lives today that are angels. They're meant to be, they're guiding lights. They're shedding positivity in our life. And it's just if we can see that and kind of latch onto it, it's incredibly powerful.
So is there in your book, is there a core thesis? Like what's the message or the learning that you want people to come away from the book with?
Sure. Yeah. At the main message is that you can't rewrite your past, but you can remix your future.
Hmm.
And I use the word remix in the title and in that the mantra, but because I've also been a DJ for 25 years. I absolutely love music. The music and DJing for me has also been one of the most therapeutic outlets. So we talk about mental health. Depression is something that kind of sits in the past, right? We're constantly thinking about the past. We're getting sad about the past, what was, we're missing that. And I've lived that over and over and over again. Anxiety is the future, right? So we can be scared, we can be nervous about the future, or the future can be something that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to instill, is that we have to just keep moving forward.
And that notion of it's so I'm just really enthralled with the conversation. I've had a lot of clients, and it's actually one of the things that it's insufficiently discussed is the extent to which entrepreneurs battle depression and anxiety and things like that. I mean, and I have a lot of conversations. I'm not a therapist. I refer people to therapy if they need it. I try to avoid playing where I don't belong.
Same here.
But one of the things that I've often talked about with clients who are going through something is just go help somebody. Like, yes, pursue therapy and something, but the instant you go help somebody, you feel so much better about yourself, mm-hmm. and you actually take the focus off of yourself, which is one of the benefits of it.
It's true. And whatever nonprofit, charity, or just people in your life, I think it's a very humbling experience. And one thing I've really learned, I think, throughout my life is to really appreciate people, mm-hmm. and all people equally, right? Because a life is a life. And so whether you're helping out your neighbor next door because they can't shovel their walk, or you're going and volunteering and handing out dinners, like Christmas dinners to a homeless shelter, it's all good. It's all good things.
Yeah,
right.
That's funny. One of my best friends, he's a neighbor. We actually met out front shoveling each of our older neighbors' walks, and it was sort of
wow.
We're similar people. So we became fast friends. It's always a great experience when you see people who are similarly aligned with your values. Now, how does this, when you say people are people and it's how you want to treat them, how does that show up in your business? Like, as you're in there does that inform how you do your training, what you do with clients when people are struggling with the training? Like, does this value set, do you see how it shows up, and do the clients see that?
Yeah, I would hope they see it, because that's definitely my style of. I mean, when I was a business leader before, how I worked and coached a team, worked alongside them and coached with them. I'd check my ego at the door. Just doesn't matter what title I have. I'm just a person. They are a person, and I want to help them. And that's how I go about training. Is that it doesn't matter if they're the CEO, they're the entry-level analyst. I want to help them. That's my goal. And my goal is to make sure they understand and feel confident, because believe it or not, even though I'm teaching Excel and these analytic things, back in my mind, I'm thinking this is going to help their mental health, because it's going to hopefully reduce their stress, their anxiety with work, and their potential burnout, which I've gone through all three.
Yeah, there's something called the competence-confidence loop, that the more competent you become, the more confident you are. And then the more confident you are, the more increasing levels of competence you pursue, right? And so you should keep sort of laddering up. And the more confident you are, then that absolutely reduces your anxiety about the future, because you believe in your abilities to handle what comes at you.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And I think that think we assume too much that people just know what they should be doing at their job, and companies continue to throw like new data sets at them, new challenges, and there's a lot of people struggling. And I work with a lot of amazing sales folks, and I would say that that's a case because people could be in sales for the last 20, 30 years, and there's been a tremendous amount of change, right? Especially with technology. And so someone might have graduated from university again decades ago, and things have changed. And the rate of change right now because of data, machine learning, AI, it's hard to keep on the pulse of it when you're trying to do an account manager job. So
Right.
that's what I like to do is just, I want to make their lives easier. I want to make it so they have to work smart, like not work as hard, but work smarter. And hopefully you have to work, those less of those long days so they can maybe go enjoy that, do something they enjoy more, like with their family, or something they enjoy more with their job.
I think it's something I hope people picked up on in what you just said, particularly entrepreneurial leaders, that we assume too much that people know what they're doing, and that sometimes, and if people do have anxiety or depression or just, concerns about what their boss is going to think, they may not come forward with the request to get, additional training or help or learning in what they're doing. And so sometimes the people higher up on the ladder need to actually be proactive to identify what learning opportunities there might be or what learning needs people have.
Very true. Yeah.
Now, so on your business, what was it's interesting, you just chose 25%. So we see why you made the choice as the organization you wanted to choose. 25% is a chunk of change. But it's not 10%, it's not 50%. How did you arrive at that?
It's kind of funny because I obviously am a very analytical person. You would have thought that I spent hours or days or weeks crunching numbers and analyzing it. But because this idea to launch Data Gives Back was so fueled through my entire body and DNA, when I talked to Carly about it, my wife and business partner, I just had this idea that I knew from the industry that when you were going to do a sale or promotion in the grocery store, typically 25% or a greater discount on your price is where you're going to start to really see a good sales lift. I feel like that's what, again, I wasn't doing that analysis, but I feel like that's why I picked 25%. And I was thinking, okay, 50%, I don't think that that's financially feasible, sustainable. But 25% feels very impactful. And it's an easy number for, our clients to understand that there's a big impact happening here. The other thing that was really important to me was that it was revenue. It was not profit. And I'm not trying to knock any companies that donate profit because that's incredible. Like anything that gets donated, I'm supporting. But for me, I wanted full transparency of the numbers. Like our organization itself is completely transparent. So I wanted my client to know that if they spent $1,000 and they invested $1,000 in our training services, well, right away, $250 is going to get donated to Season Center. That's non-negotiable. That's the practice right there. So yes, it seemed crazy. I had people questioning me like, hold on a second, you're talking top line, not bottom line. But I said, I'm going to start at zero. So every dollar, I'm going to account for that and I'm going to plan for it. I also have an incredible financial advisor because that's only possible, right, to have a good plan. Yeah. But we're now in our 4th year of business and it's really working and it's resonated. And I think that, it's showing a different way of doing business, like compassionate capitalism or conscious capitalism.
Yep. Now, do you ever get cynical responses to it? Like, oh, you must just be upping your prices to make up for it, or people saying, hey, I'll pay, a little bit less and just give a little less to the charity because, hey, it's, you're not making money. Like, do you ever get any cynical responses?
Fortunately, I have not. I think that I'm open enough about my story, my cause, our why, that they don't do that. And even our prices, are very competitive, if not below market cost, either when I was doing consulting or even training now. So I'm very fortunate that I haven't had those pushback pieces.
Right. And I think the reason I asked the question is because of your authenticity. I have a theory. It doesn't apply 100% of the time, but I think when people do quote give back initiatives that are just marketing ploys, people can smell it and they're not as connected to it. But when it comes from an authentic place like yours does, people respect it. And I think people are smart enough to figure that out. If it's just the marketing department came up with a cool idea to tap into
Right.
the public's concern about something, people get it. But in your case, it comes from such a deep, authentic place that I would actually be surprised if people push back on it.
Right. Yeah, it's usually the opposite. And it's just been amazing. So for example, Walmart Canada has been one of our training clients, and they want me to speak about the cause before I do Excel training, before I do story training. And that to me just shows the shift that's been happening in the industry. It was happening pre-pandemic, but I'm really thrilled to see how much that's increased. How much these organizations, these talking about Walmart, the largest retailer in the world, maybe it's kind of going head to head with Amazon now, but they want to support these local causes, and they want me to talk about it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now giving up to, so now I know there's probably going to be some entrepreneurs listening going, but how do you do that? So there have to be some challenges, like 25% of your margin, because you're, in consulting or training, it's a pretty high margin business because there's not a lot of cost of goods.
Mm-hmm.
But you're giving up 25% of it. So how has that impacted your processes, your efficiency, your sales targets, things like that?
I would say that in the first 2 years, just like a lot of businesses, I wasn't expecting a huge profit per se, right? Because there were things I was investing in. I mean, even though I do have low overhead, I mean, we're based at home. This is actually Carly's office I'm in today. My office is being kind of worked on from a leak in our basement. But, I learned in the first couple of years because I did hire different coaches and trainers. I had to invest in certain software. I did have to buy a few like computers and things. I definitely am always trying to be as frugal as possible, but there were areas where I knew I had to invest, right? Like for one thing, like a business coach was really important to me. That was something I did not do my first go around as an entrepreneur. So I was fortunate because like I said, as soon as I had this idea, I talked to my financial advisor and I said, okay, this is what I'm thinking. We were already very close, like in terms of our financial planning. And I said, okay, this is what's happening. This is, between our different incomes and things. So I would say that as a social entrepreneur, you need to have a solid financial plan. You need to be working with a financial advisor, or you have those skills so that you can make it through, right? Mm-hmm. Because also the way that revenue and cash flow goes, it is not like getting a salary where everything's like every 2 weeks you get the same pay, and then every year you might get a couple % increase. Like it's not like that. You got to be okay with the big fluctuations or the 60-day terms and of contracts and stuff like that. So
right.
I also have an incredible bookkeeper, and that's also been something I didn't do right the first time. But now bookkeeper right from the beginning. So the financial tracking, and then every single year I've done a full sales plan for the year, kind of like how I would do in corporate CPG, but our business is a lot more simple.
Right.
The thing that I've learned probably the most in the last 2 years is to do a more detailed expense plan, because that ultimately that's what's going to eat into your bottom line, your profit levels. So I would say in the last year or so, we've really increased our bottom line, mostly because some things we didn't need to continue investing in. And then we just continue to learn and kind of get smarter the way that we do things, because we're not talking about $1 million business here.
Right. Nice. And so what are the challenges you're facing now?
I'll always face the challenge that I wish I could clone myself. I think that's what any entrepreneur goes through. We're unique. Like, I'm not trying to grow 5x, 10x. I'm not trying to grow this thing in such a fast pace that it's not sustainable. So I would say that sometimes I have to scale back my ideas for growth, and that's okay. I've learned that it's better to be sustainable but consistent, and that's what's helped us get to 4 years. But yeah, cash flow is always going to be a challenge. Mm-hmm. Cash flow, like, again, because we're donating so much, it's like donating a salary,
right,
of an employee, and that's one of the reasons why it still is just Carly and I, right? Because it's a variable cost, right? And it's an awesome variable cost. As we increase revenue, we donate more, but I can't commit to having a salaried employee with all these different aspects, because my commitment always to the charity first.
Right.
So I'd say,
have you tried to clone yourself, like bring in someone else to deliver the service?
So far, I've more so gone with like virtual assistant teams, mm-hmm. helping more of the behind the scenes work. We're very active on social media, so we have had some great help on creating templates, getting ideas and things that way. Even some of the prospecting at one point. When Carly came on the business in September of 2023, we took that back in-house. But I am thrilled. I have people now want to volunteer, like in the data world, to help me build training modules, just because they believe so much in the cause.
Nice.
And so that is it kind of just blows me away that people want to do that. And so there's a number of other, I would say, like, resources out there from post-secondary schools. I can share you with the link afterwards, that are, they're third and fourth year college, university students, and it's on an app, and it's part of their credits. Mm. And so companies will basically connect through the app. These students will work for free. Some are slightly paid, or they have a grant. And so it's a really great resource, especially for small entrepreneurs. What's
the app called?
I don't want to misquote it. If I can find it during our call, I'll find it. If not, we can definitely share it afterwards. But
sure. I'm familiar with a couple of programs like that, but yeah, I didn't know there was maybe one of them has an app now. So one question, probably a few people who haven't had the experience of Twig you saying, working with your spouse, in a small business. How do you manage that? Like, I'm sure there's like, what are we doing on the weekend? What's going on with the kids and the dinner? And by the way, what happened with that social media campaign? Create some interesting conversations. How do you manage that?
I think we're in a unique spot because this is the second marriage for both Carly and I. And so we actually are, next week, we're celebrating our 9th wedding anniversary on Valentine's Day.
Oh, congrats.
We were married on Valentine's Day in Toronto. But I think our relationship is just solid, like going into the business, right? And I would say, even if she wasn't formally my partner, she's always been my partner, because this is such a big endeavor to take as a family, and really the impact to our family finances, right? So even beforehand, when I'd have a win, I'd get a sale or something, she's the first person I want to tell. I want to high five, want to hug. And I would talk through things with her. I would say that we're fortunate because, we are in the suburbs. We have her office up here, the main floor. I'm in the basement. And we only have one check-in project management meeting once a week. And other than that, we kind of just, I'm doing a lot of the customer-facing pieces, and then she's working on certain projects behind the scenes. I think it just comes down, though, to our relationship. I think it just comes down to that has to be completely solid before you start working together. So we're incredibly respectful of how we communicate to each other. Like you said about the kids, our daughters are 7 and 16. So even just like we work together to get our littlest one ready in the morning, lunches, I do drop-offs, she does pickups. Like we're working from home, so we're always around to support the girls. So we're constantly communicating every day. Every morning we have coffee and tea together and we talk about, okay, what's the day look like? Okay, well, and I say like, oh, you're in a meeting here? Okay, well then I'm going to go and pick up the girls here. Or someone's not feeling good. Well, I'm free. I'll go pick them up, or I'll take they forgot their lunch or something like that. So like communication and respect, I mean, it goes beyond a business partnership. It's the life partnership.
Right.
So we had a very upfront talk though. I said, well, what do you feel like? I want to be equal partners. But when it comes to a decision, how do we want to kind of move forward with this? I never want to get to a point where we're kind of like butting heads on things. And that's where, like you said, okay, well, certain things, like I'm the go-to person, to make a decision. Other things, she's the go-to person, and we fully respect that.
That's brilliant to just make sure those rules are established. And even if it's not a spouse, I've seen the same problem happen just in business partners because they haven't clarified what decision-making processes are. They wind up in difficulties. But having that level of respect and say, it's almost like the old RACI, right? Responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed. Like which of those are at play in this? So certain cases in a business partnership, I want to be informed about it. I want to be consulted about it, but ultimately it's your decision and you got to wear the consequences of it. But I have to respect that it's your decision. And when those rules aren't clear, that's when there's conflicts in partnerships that are absolutely unnecessary. So good for you guys for actually setting that up ahead of time. That's smart.
Thank you.
Listen, we're nearing the end. I always like to finish with just a couple of catch-all questions. I call it the rapid fire.
Okay.
So one decision or action that most helped you get where you are?
That was working with a business coach.
I like that answer a lot. If I had to do it over again, I would
100%.
So what would you do different? You have to do it over again.
Do it differently?
If anything.
I don't know if I would. I don't really live my life like that.
Right.
I feel like even though, like I said, I was married before, as much as it's easy to say I would do that differently, it kind of all had to work out the way it did. Like I always say, to meet Carly, I had to go through that, right? Just like even with my life as a grieving child, I am the person who I am today because of those experiences. So might not be the answer you wanted, but I would say
that's a fantastic.
I wouldn't do anything differently because we learn the most through the biggest challenges.
Yep. No, I think that is the spot on answer. One aspect of running a business I've yet to master.
Oh man, there's lots of things. Because I think that I'm constantly learning. I would say
if you learn it would be the needle mover for you.
I would say doing more with less. Like, so again, my time and my mental capacity is only a certain amount. So I'm continuously trying to make that more efficient. And so I'm using more tools, AI, different tools, looking at launching an online training LMS system this year. So that's because all my training to date is all live in Zoom or in person. So that's one thing that I'm trying to get better at is kind of scaling my knowledge and expertise without it always having to be me live.
Right. Okay, last two questions. One personal quality that I most had to improve or overcome to succeed.
My confidence. I probably threw in the towel at least 3 times when I was going through this with my business coach because it's scary. I didn't know if anyone would pay $1 to have me train them.
And what's one personal quality? I can almost guess what it's going to be. What one personal quality, no false humility, that most contributed to your success?
I think it would be just my heart, my empathy for others, and my caring for others.
That's a great place to finish off. How can people get a hold of you if there's anyone listening that needs some training or knows somebody who needs some training in these areas?
Sure. So LinkedIn is my storefront. I hang out there every day, Monday to Friday. So you can catch me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Joe Lyons-Rising, I think, on the internet. So
And
you can
Lyons
find me
is
on LinkedIn.
Lyons, right?
Lyons, yes. You can also check out our website, datagivesback.com. And you can also email me at joe, Joe, at datagivesback.com. Always love chatting and meeting new people.
Thanks very much for your time. I mean, a data nerd who snowboards and is a DJ on the side while running an entrepreneurial business. That's pretty cool. Thanks so much for your time, and I wish you much success with your book and continue impacting the lives of others.
Thanks so much, Warren. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. And that is exactly what we mean by a business that matters.